Years in 50 states, and since 2003, we've awarded more than 300,000 quilts.
Yay! Round of applause.
Awesome. 2 years ago, when some of us gathered at the parish casa, I had a hope that at our 50th reunion, we might do something to honor our veterans, and I had some volunteers. And I twisted a few arms that did not resist. And so I had some help in this endeavor, and I'd like to recognize them now. This was a collaborative effort with C.C. Harry Getchell, Lee Lemon Horn, Joe Delancey Scott, Jane Harriet McGraw, Linda Licklider Parrish, and Chris Petipar. And to our veterans in our class and their families, some of who are here tonight, your classmates of 1971 have gathered here, recognize your service to our great nation. We may never know the extent of your sacrifice and your service to protect us. It's a privilege and an honor, and I am humbled on this night to present you with a quilt of valor, which represents our love and gratitude for your service. Please know that your sacrifice has not been forgotten or taken for granted. You are the stars in our flag, our hometown heroes.
I know you have a story to
So we have several that are not here this evening, and I'm going to call their names and give you just a little blurb on what they're doing these days. And if you'll hold your applause till the end of that, and then we have 3 actual presentations to make this evening. The first one is Bill Black, and he now goes by Will. He served in the United States Navy for 6 years. He was a Petty Officer 3 and a hospital corpsman at the Jacksonville Naval Air Station, assigned to the ICU unit. He lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, and he has graciously asked that we give his award to another wounded veteran or a son or a daughter of a deceased veteran, which I've already made arrangements to do that. The second is Steve Tully. He still lives here in New Martinsville, but he couldn't be here tonight. He served in the Army from 1971 to 74, and he was a Specialist E4. Mike Glendenning remains MIA on my list, unfortunately. I'm told he served in the Army, and he now lives in Olympia, Washington, but my efforts were unsuccessful, but I haven't given that up yet. Joe Hartline was an absolute pleasure to talk to, and he really wanted to be here tonight. I kind of had a feeling he might walk in anyway, but Joe was in the Army from 71 until he medically retired in 1984. He was a Sergeant First Class, a communications specialist, and he was assigned to the 3rd Armored Tank Division out of Fort Bragg, and to my surprise, and it's just awesome, the 101st Airborne Division out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. You know anything about the Army, that's an elite assault team called the Screaming Eagles. He says he's got more than a few dings in lots of places, and he's pretty much the bionic man. Lives in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and he had some VA appointments that conflicted tonight. But Joe, if you see this video, West Virginia out. Lee Henderson is our only Marine, and he's a retired gunnery sergeant. He enlisted in October of 1971 and retired in February 1992. He lives in Yuma, Arizona, and will celebrate 50 years of marriage next month with his wife, the former Kathy Morgan of New Martinsville.
Nice.
Lee sent a message for us. He says, it is true, once a Marine, always a Marine. Semper Fi, Lee. Richard Kelly is also an interesting character, and I see some class of 70 folks here. He told me he was originally in the class of 70, got into an argument with Helen Piles about Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe, and she threw him out of his class. So he went another year. I said, well, did you only take English? And he said, oh no, I took all the classes over again. What the heck? It's such an enjoyable. He also told me that he enlisted in the Army because he was sitting at the red carpet lounge one night with Roland Day, and Roland says, hey, I'm going to Pittsburgh tomorrow to enlist. You want to go? He says, yeah, I was working part-time at Bridgman's, really nothing else going on in my life, so I went. And they served together through basic training, specialty training, and at the Army base in, Bamberg, Germany, they were both medics. He lives in Blue Mountain, Mississippi. Bill Beard was drafted in 1972, sitting in his dorm room at WVU. And since it was toward the end of the draft, he said he was designated actually as an active reservist and served from 1972 to 1978 as a combat engineer. Had a hard time finding him because he's usually on the beach in Virginia Beach, but he's still working as a pharmacist and, like I said, lives in Virginia Beach. Henry Crouch served in the U.S. Navy from 71 to 73 as a third-class petty officer. He lives in Burles Inlet, South Carolina. He also had planned to be here tonight, but once again, the VA came up with some long-awaited appointments, and he had to bow out. And the last is Paul Wright. Paul passed away in April of this year. He served in the U.S. Navy from 72 to 75 aboard the USS Intrepid and the USS Puget Sound. He was still living in New Martinsville, and we will be awarding his quilt to his wife, Patty, after this weekend. So, for the veterans and the family members who are here this evening, will you please come forward to accept your quilt after I call your name? Thank you. You want to bring it up, Fred? Nick Lloyd passed away in 2010. He served in the U.S. Air Force from 1972 to 1976 at Shaw Air Base in Sumter, South Carolina. Accepting tonight on the behalf of Nick's wife, Kathy, are her sisters, Lisa Licklider and Elizabeth Hartman, both of New Martinsville. Thank you for coming.
On behalf of Kathy, our sister, and her 3 children, Paul, Heather, and Jay, they are really, really appreciative of this honor. They are so pleased. They just couldn't take care of them. But thank you so much for this honor.
Thank you.
Oh, look at the backside. Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful.
Did you get it? I got one, but I'll get another one. Thank you. Thank you.
So nice.
David McGraw passed away in 1979. He served in the U.S. Navy from 71 to 79. He was a first-class petty officer, air traffic controller. Accepting tonight is David's widow and 1971 classmate, Jane Herrick McGraw, who actually pieced this quilt because she wanted to do that, designed it, her and her daughter, and thank you for being here tonight, Jane. And last but never ever least, and all the way from Texas, is Dwight Shreve. Dwight rolled out of bed right one night after graduation and landed at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, in June of 1971. He served in the U.S. Air Force until May of 1983 and discharged as a technical sergeant. He spent time in the Philippines and stateside at bases in South Dakota and Ohio. His last 6 years were back at Lackland as an instructor for the Air Force Security Police Academy, and has made Texas his home ever since. Thank you for your service, Dwight. Thank you for your patience. This is a project that was very near and dear to my heart, and it concludes our ceremony. Take it away, Chris.